Meeting of the Montara Water and Sanitary District Board of Directors. It's August 3rd, 2023. It's 7:33 p.m. I'll do a roll call. Director Decker.
Aye.
Director Slater Carter.
Present.
Director Softy.
Here.
Director Young.
Present.
Director Boyd is present. So all present and accounted for. For my president's statement, I think all I'm going to say is I just came back from a place that was perpetually sunny and extraordinarily hot, and walked right into the welcoming fog, and yeah, I'm glad to be back. Do we have any oral comments for items that are not on the agenda? Not seeing any, so let's then move to the public hearing, the review and possible action concerning the Second Amendment to Verizon site lease.
Yeah, thank you, Scott. So this is since quite some time the first time that we're looking at the Verizon lease again, and I want to thank Aaron Levinson for helping us navigate through this maze of cell providers and other leases that we're actually currently working on. The board gets to see Aaron only when there is success to report. But Aaron and I work very closely together on all of these issues. And here we have a negotiated amendment to the Verizon site lease, essentially an extension. That, of course, also was reviewed by our legal counsel. I want to hand it over to Aaron for the details. So, Aaron, just tell us a little bit about what we are doing here with the Verizon lease.
Sure. Hello, everybody. So, if I'm beginning to give you too much information, please let me know, and I'll scale it back. Basically, the MWSD was approached by American Tower, which was involved with the Verizon lease earlier on, and had approached Clemens wanting to extend the lease, wanting to buy the lease, wanting to buy a perpetual easement. And that was a number of years ago. And those were all terrible options. And after beginning to work with Clemens on this, we realized quickly that we had to get American Tower out of the picture and deal directly with your tenant, Verizon. So that was done, and in 2020 we started dealing with Verizon. And dealing with Verizon is, or any carrier, but particularly Verizon, is and should be a time-consuming process. My primary focus is to protect your property. The economic benefits are important, but what's more important is that you all, that your property is protected, and that you remain in control of what happens on your property. And so that's what we thought about as we began to negotiate with Verizon. So we started in 2020 discussions with them, and now finally we have come to an agreement with them that accomplishes a few things, and namely it gives the MWSD more control and protection over their property. The original Verizon agreement and the First Amendment, were pretty old and needed to be, there's some issues that needed to be addressed. And I'll quickly run through them. And again, stop me if I'm giving you more information than you want. But basically, this Second Amendment allows the MWSD to control basically what happens on the monopole. If Verizon wants to make any changes, add equipment, add conduit cabling, what have you, anywhere outside of the garage that Verizon would need MWSD approval to do that. So that was a change. And it just wasn't defined in the original agreement. So also any additional arms onto the monopole, any changes like that, also subject to MWSD review and approval or disapproval. Also, the Verizon is going to have to be responsible for any damages they may cause. Now, hopefully they won't, but they need to be responsible for that. And so that is now in this second agreement. The access. So in the past, Verizon hires a lot of contractors to do different things. Some of them adjust antennas, some of them deal with power, some of them deal with the generator, and people were coming and going, and it took a lot of time away from Clemens and staff to deal with this, and often they would just show up, and that's unacceptable. So now they need to give at least 24 hours notice, and that if they want to access anything outside of the garage, anything inside the MWSD fenced area, they have to provide prior notice, which, and work with Clemens and the district to make sure that the timing works for the district and doesn't interfere with anything that is going on at the district. And also as part of the access, they have to tell you who their contractors are. People just can't show up and you don't know who they are. That's not, very, very secure for the MWSD. And also we negotiated language in the assignment section that will prevent Verizon from easily assigning the lease to a tower company, lease aggregator, a non-carrier, real estate REIT, things like that. Those they don't operate the way a carrier does. And they're a much different tenant. And the MWSD is better off having a direct relationship with their tenant as opposed to having to work through a third party. So that's what we addressed in that. So in addition to all these things, the agreement would extend for 10 years, and the rent would be increased, but it would be effective December of 2022. December 1st, 2022. The agreement expired November 30th of 2022. So the rent increase, which would be $4,000 a month, will be effective as of December 1st, 2022, and would extend for 10 years. The annual escalations are at 3% per year. And I think that's pretty much everything in a nutshell. So does anybody have any questions?
Let's go to Sid.
Hi. One of the questions I have is, you mentioned the garage. That's for this property here, right? The garage just beyond
Yes.
our parking lot? Okay,
Yes.
and so you don't have any towers up on our water tanks, right?
Correct.
Okay, but we could. I mean, there's no reason we couldn't get a different supplier up there and make this kind of sweet deal with them, right?
Correct.
Okay, and then that's it. That's all. The other question I had is for later.
Okay, Bill.
I have a minor one. You talked about all sorts of contractual things to prevent them from taking advantage of this or showing up or damaging things and so forth. Which is incredibly reasonable from a protection point of view. But have there been problems like this since we've been running it for so many years?
And Clemens, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. I don't believe so. I mean, but
Well,
maybe, yeah, maybe there has, but
I mean, let me say it this way: there is sometimes activity. There was activity with at the towers without our knowledge. One other issue that is maybe a little bit different, but that I see in that realm as well, is the installation of the original generator was not done really to our satisfaction. It was not done really properly. A steel casing is going to rust away, and it did very quickly, and it was an eyesore. And as Aaron mentioned, the exhaust was pointed towards the building. I mean, that's just really how do you turn the exhaust? It's just like a piece of metal that's on top, and you can turn it the other direction. So these kind of things, I think, give us a little more, involvement and say in here right now, and help prevent these issues.
Good.
Yes.
Plus, I would think it's disruptive to your day if all of a sudden people just show up, you don't even know who they are or if they're coming. And that's
Right.
not right if you're managing our district.
Correct. That's right. So we don't like to see them, for example, after hours on property, these kind of issues.
and these things were not, Verizon, every carrier does not like any of these things to happen. They want to be able to do what they want to do, when they want to do it, make changes, make antenna additions, go to 5G, whatever, without any interference or without the property owner having any say in the matter. And, that will not happen here with this new amendment.
There's a way for them to get those kind of rights, but it involves a bigger check.
Yeah. They have not yet, anyway. This negotiation for this is just extending the lease. So I'm sure that at some point in the near future, perhaps right after this is signed, Clemens will start to hear from them about wanting to make changes. But now you're in the driver's seat, and they will not be changing anything on the antennas without in-depth analysis and further rent increases, for that matter.
One other thing, you didn't mention it, but I know some people are sensitive to essentially tower signals. Have you had any complaints about that?
Electromagnetic.
Essentially.
Well, in short, no, we didn't have any complaints about any radiation or anything here on the premises.
Good.
And this site is, and I'm not an RF engineer, but I've been working on these things for a little while, and this site is situated in that it really is far away from areas where that could be a concern. It's an ideal site in terms of covering Highway 1 north and south and the surrounding communities.
Modern day lighthouse.
Well, so the next step in our public hearing is to open the public hearing, see if we have any testimony. And Catherine, why don't you go ahead first?
Thank you. I appreciate, given the changes in security awareness have come up since we first signed with a cell tower, that these have been incorporated into the lease. I think that we have just one employee here during the day, and it's nice for them to be able to know who's coming and when. And so I think I am glad that these updates have been made. Thank you. And for the public, we have used these this income from these towers to 100% to the benefit of the district and the public. And the other is that we do need these towers. The emergency situations are such that there are times where we don't have cable for hours or days. And so often the only way, and a lot of folks have gotten rid of their AT&T copper lines. And so our cell towers are the only way that people can communicate. And so I'm glad we're doing this. I look forward to hearing from the public when it comes to renegotiating the lease. One of the things I'd like that is an issue, and I don't know if it can be combined with this. We've got experts on the coast, and I'm not one of them, but is to be able to get better digital television kinds of signals and internet signals for the community, because as I said, the cable here is bad. And for some of us, the only way we can have cell phone is to have a booster in our house or to rely on cable. So perhaps there's a way to work to get signals more distributed throughout the community, so that we have better communication and support when we need it. So I look forward to being able to discuss that in the not too distant future. I had spoken to somebody from the Verizon office in Half Moon Bay, and they had said there were some kinds of grants available. If people were, it was a $50,000 grant, not a lot of money as things go, but if people were trying to work with Verizon to put up local digital, I don't know, pods or something. I'm making that word up. But so maybe when we're renegotiating the lease with Verizon, we can be working towards better communications throughout the community.
I'm confused. I thought we had renegotiated the lease with Verizon, and that this meeting was the meeting whereby we approve of that change.
That's correct.
Oh, I heard him say that there was a new lease coming up, and this was an extension of the old one.
No, so what's happened? This is a renegotiate, or this is an amendment to the
Right.
existing. And then he was suggesting that in future, since we're in the driver's seat, when they want to do things like change out the technology on the tower, they then become obligated to come talk to us,
Well,
which then becomes another negotiation, which I think, Aaron, that's what you were referring to as potential
Right.
future negotiations.
okay. Well,
Yeah.
I'm hoping that these future negotiations come sooner so we can get better signal for the entire community, because there are people. I had a friend who he had a terrible accident on the mountain. And he happened to have his accident in the one spot where his cell phone worked.
So lucky.
Another friend had a terrible accident on the mountain, and there was no cell phone signal. And we need to be looking for better emergency kinds of services.
Mhm.
That goes back to Sid's question that there is more space at our sites, and we are working in the background since some time with AT&T for our Alta Vista site. So there's they're going through permitting for a monopole at the Alta Vista site that would essentially cover then I'm going to say the entire district. The essentially cell phone reception and range would be dramatically improved in Montara and Moss Beach. We're also working with UC San Diego on an agreement to place a vertical wind profiler on this site here.
What?
It's a weather instrument that looks at essentially trying to make predictions or trying to better understand pineapple expresses.
Oh, that's the radar, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And we're also now start working with the fire department. They're actually relocating their communications antenna and are looking for a permanent site. So we're talking to all three parties at this time.
So
I did give your name to, it used to be coastside.net, but they got bought out by Cruise.io in Santa Cruz, and they're looking for a location because they can't serve a lot of the people in Montara for internet. And I told them, to call you, but that was when you were on vacation, so maybe I'll give you their information too. But they want something that would, blast out into the valley of below the mountain. And also, while you're in conversations with CAL FIRE, they put their it's a fire cam to see smoke on the horizon and stuff to predict if they see a fire off in the distance. And I looked at it one day and it was all in the fog. It's too high up on the mountain. So you might just offer them, another spot and see if they want to test it out to see if they're getting better, less foggy.
I had that conversation, and unfortunately, they don't think that one of our sites is suitable for a camera.
Yeah. I guess they like that foggy site better.
Yeah.
Looks like smoke.
Yeah.
okay, so we've got some action to do here. I'm going to open the public hearing. The public hearing is now open. And now we want to hear relevant testimony. So if anyone in the audience wishes to make any observations or pose any questions, let's go to Greg Diegas.
Hi, Aaron, I'm the chair of the Mid-Coast Community Council. I believe most of you know we did a significant report on telecommunications vulnerabilities here in the Mid-Coast. And some of what you're talking about now sounds like it is targeting some of the weaknesses. Getting a monopole up for, was it Verizon? I believe, I'm not the expert. The guy from Apple, who was our lead technical guy, could speak better to it. But I would not change anything you're doing, except I would encourage you to maintain maximum flexibility going forward. Mm-hmm. Our approach is going to be to try and form a community fiber network. I met with a caseworker from California Middle Mile Broadband Initiative, was it late last week? And I'm meeting with the National Telecommunications, NTIA, whatever that stands for, tomorrow morning, try and get grant money. You're aware that the district has endorsed our efforts to create this. Our solution to the cell phone problem is to have better internet, especially undergrounded with fiber, and then you can use voice over IP from the homes. But what you're doing sounds like you're addressing some of the cellular coverage vulnerabilities that we had, and that's good to see. So keep up the good work. And it sounds like, Clemens, I better make sure you or your delegates are sitting in on our work group. We have requested $100,000 from the county to get this feasibility study off the ground. And, you're a player in this as a stakeholder who could benefit from the improved connectivity we get. So let's just stay in touch. All right. Thank you.
Okay. Do we have anyone else wishes to offer testimony on this matter? If not, then the next item would be to entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
I move to close the public hearing.
Second.
So it's been moved and seconded to close the public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the public hearing is closed. Now the action before us is adopting the resolution. Need to buy some spaces on how we have it in the staff report, so I can read it from the resolution itself. Resolution finding that certain district property is not needed for immediate district purposes, that use thereof under a proposed amended lease with a term not exceeding 10 years is compatible with district uses, that said amended lease will be of public benefit, approving, authorizing, and directing execution thereof, and authorizing and directing general manager to file notice of exemption under California Environmental Quality Act for said project.
So moved.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
Okay, so Peter makes a
Peter made
motion,
it, I'll
Catherine
second.
seconds. All right, it's a resolution. Let's just do this by roll call. Director Decker,
Aye.
Director Slater Carter.
Yes.
Director Stockton,
Aye.
Director Young,
Aye.
Director Boyd votes aye. Motion carries by a vote of 5-0. All right, thank you, Aaron.
Thank you,
Welcome, Clemens. All right, let's now move into, we have 10 items on the consent agenda. Does anyone wish to pull any items on the consent agenda? If not, can I have a motion to approve the
I'll
consent
make the
agenda?
motion.
Second.
So Peter moved, Catherine seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Consent agenda is approved. New business, item 1, review and possible action concerning authorization to award the contract for construction of the sewer improvement project and spot repairs 2022-2023. I'm just gonna say before Clemens jumps in, this is actually some of the really fun stuff where we get to actually go make things better and stronger. So, Clemens?
Yeah, thanks, Scott. We went about 2 months ago to the board asking for essentially permission to go out to bid on this project. And I'm not going to take away too much from this, from the wonderful news. Bids came in, I think, very well. Pippin, tell us about the bidding process, how it went, please.
Thank you. Can y'all hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Good. Yeah, this is nice to be able to put a project out. Once we had a good handle on how the budget was looking, we went ahead and put together a project, continuing our efforts over quite a number of years now, where we're trying to focus on a couple key factors: reducing rainwater getting into the sewer system, reducing the effort for SAM staff trying to clean difficult pipes that are back in easements and behind homes, and hopefully, where possible, improving lateral connections and laterals to as the projects go by to benefit the overall water, resistance for rainwater and so forth getting into the system, and reducing sewer spills. So that's the overall goal of the project. Every year or 18 months, we do a pretty big project. The goal here was to continue working up around the Date Art Valley where it's quite wet. And then also take care of pipes near the ocean. So we have some work over around 7th Street Pump Station. In recent years, there's just where all the water drains down the hill. Sam has indicated there's a lot of water pressure coming into the system there. So we're trying to combat that and really seal it up. So the bids were, let's see, I apologize here. Let me pull up the item. The bid spreadsheet was included there in the packet, and we had 4 qualified bidders. Hardiman Construction of Larkspur, California got the low bid. The way the project, we have 2 sections of the bid here. We have a base bid and an alternate bid. We did that just to make sure we had maximum flexibility for our budget, depending on prices or other budgetary needs at the district, to be able to only award a portion of the project if the board feels we need to spend a little less right at the moment. So the award was given based on the lowest bid for the base bid amount. But then if we like that person's price on the second bid, which is generally following pretty regimented numbers across there, so they can't inflate the prices. And if it's within the budget, we can award the whole amount. Hardiman Construction got the low bid. They're not a contractor that's worked in Montara before, but they have a long history it's a fairly small company, but they have a long history doing this kind of work in Marin County. And the second bidder was Glossich Engineering, who has worked for the district. And third was Pacific Trenchless, who'd worked for the district. And fourth, also a contractor not worked for the district, but interestingly, I think what happened, the subcontractor is typically the pipe contractor for number four, and there's a construction company that I think is the Sun that started a company in San Francisco. So anyway, that their price reflects quite a bit higher number because of the subcontractor markup there. At any rate, we had, let's see, their budget for this project was, exactly remember the numbers. We had a 2.34 or 2.394 million budget overall. And we have a combined project. If we awarded both the base bid and the alternate, would be a construction cost of 1.93. So being that we're under that budget, if it suits the board at this time, we'd recommend that we award the whole contract to Hardiman Construction. They have a good safety record and a lot of experience working in laterals. And so we think they'll do a good job.
I have a question, Pippin.
Yeah.
Last year we had Pacific Trenchless do the job. Is there any reason that they this time are not considered? Is that only because of the price? Did they do a good job last year?
Yes. So
would think that we will give them this project as well.
Right. So in public bidding,
keeping us away from that.
Sorry, in public bidding, we're bound by the lowest price if the contractor submits a responsive and responsible bid, meaning they do all the steps in the bid, all the documents are submitted, all their financials are qualified, and they have competence in construction. So they have a legal license, and they have the Department of Industrial Relations certification for prevailing wage. And if those things are all met, we have to accept the lowest price. We have no options. Even if the second and third contractors are extremely qualified and they're good, they did a great job last time.
What is it? What is the meaning of those three numbers at the very bottom? The one that says 3 years average EMR and 3 years average RAR and LTR. What is that?
So we have a criteria in the bid specs that defines how many lost hours due to, say, work-related injury or other claims. Either someone says, "Oh, I hurt my back, I have to go to the hospital," or they've had a damage on the job, like the contractor truck backed into somebody's car and caused an insurance claim. These kind of deficiencies that shows contractor competence or accident prone. There's a state formula for that, and if those numbers are meeting those criteria, then they're okay to proceed on the job. If any one of these falls outside the range, so say they had 2 or 3 claims, workman comps claims, and their number for one of these lost, like the LTIR, I think is lost time, where the workers were paid, but they couldn't be on the job site, for example. If that number were over 3.1, we would require the contractor to hire a safety consultant that would come out to the job site at least weekly and on an as-needed basis to do inspections, surprise inspections. They would also provide a safety outline for all the steps the contractor would have to go through to make sure all the worker safety is covered. And there was, they had all the water, all the bathrooms, everything they need for worker safety. So even if they've had a problem or something like that, there are remedies that the contractor can choose to pay extra. So they would have to hire that out of their own profits, if you will. So it's pretty strict that the lowest contractor gets the job unless he, for some reason, realizes he can't do the job. Then he would have to forfeit his bid bond. And that would help pay for the difference in cost so we could go to the next guy in line who's more expensive. Is that right, Christine?
You got it, Pippin. That's right.
Thank you, Pippin.
Pippin, I know you've been out to my neighborhood because you did, I think, worked with Pacific Trenchless last year on San Lucas out in Seal Cove.
Yes.
And in February, I think it was, right when I became a director, Clemens and I went out that way, and there was like a little section of San Lucas that was having issues. And now I went back there this week. It's not on my block, but it's another block down near Ocean, and it's really degraded a lot. So if something were to come up, could you add into the bid, or is it too late? I'm just thinking of the neighbors down that way.
No, we do actually have a little workout on Bernal to deal with a repeated cleaning project that's a cleaning issue that Sam's had, where one of the pipes doesn't seem to drain out enough because there's only one person who's really providing any sewage on it. So we can always add at the discretion of the manager, or in larger sums, the discretion of the board. We can bring an emergency action to the board if there's something that happens, like a pipe bursts or a pipe slips so we can't clean it. We can come and let the board know this is additional work, and then you can add to the contract with a change order or a contract amendment. And if it's a substantial amount, we would bring it to you. We'd explain what the work is, and then you could choose. So we always have that option to add a change order if the contractor is capable. But yeah, that particular street you're referring to, yeah, it's a bit of a challenge there. The pipe we have is it's a pressure pipe, and it's pretty durable. I think that section might be copper. So if it is, it'll handle some movement, but there's like about 3 homes down there, I think, that are really having issues.
Sawhorses, there's 3.
Yeah.
But, the thing is, I think there was a water main that detached for the woman at 98 San Lucas. Her fire sprinkler water thing detached in the street. So you're talking sewer for this bid, right?
Correct. Yeah, this would be
okay. So I don't know. A long time ago, before I got on the board, I thought they said they were going to have flexible pipes down that way, but maybe it's not happened yet because it is moving.
It's tough. That street's moving a lot, and each situation would kind of have to be designed or dealt with on a case-by-case basis. So
sometimes people ask me. That's why I'm asking you. Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate it. So if there are concerns, or someone is having any kind of issues about their water service, or if they think there's any leak, we definitely encourage them to call, and either district staff or SAM staff can check it out just to make sure there isn't a leak. Or people, could periodically check their water meters, make sure they're not moving when they're not using any water, because there could be an underground leak, and they wouldn't know it till the next month when the bill comes and is really expensive.
Well, it was out in the street where it was leaking anyway. DPW was there, and the guy stepped into the hole. He was just throwing down cold patch, and then he caved it in. What's the EMR and the RIR at the bottom of this chart here? What does it stand for?
Oh, so I don't have my spec book right in front of me to give you the exact translation, but
I've got some of those pulled up.
Do you have them pulled up? Thank you, Scott.
Yeah.
Good, Scott.
EMR is experience modification rate. It's a number that's used to adjust the insurance rate for the firm. The RIR is the reportable incident rate.
Okay.
Right.
And the LTIR is the rate of incidents per 200,000 hours.
Per 200?
Yeah, the ratio of lost hours. So it's really hard for a new contractor to get these ratings. They'd have to be in business for at least 3 years to kind of build up some averages. And as Scott points out, their first year, they don't have an EMR because they don't have and they don't have enough hours. So these numbers will be, either zero. But if you look all the way to the right, this new contractor who's been doing other work besides sewer based by their company name, they're doing other kind of contractors. if you notice their RIR is 21.4. So they've had a couple injuries on the job. So that contractor, had they been the low bidder, we would require that they would have a safety consultant overseeing all of their work plans, all their excavations, and making sure they were doing everything per the safety requirements that OSHA would ask for.
Thank you.
Okay, if we're good on the questions,
I have a question.
okay.
I was asked, if all of our pipe replacements have been, and if this will make a significant, difference in our INI. And my response was, there's always new places for INI. So even though we keep fixing it, if we keep it flat, it's a good thing. Because it's impossible to stop all INI.
Can you remind me what INI is?
Inflow and infiltration.
Infiltration.
Oh,
What we don't want in our pipes.
Leaks in
Water
and
coming
leaks
in
out.
from the outside that adds to our sewer flow.
So Pippin.
Yes, that's
So-
correct.
Okay,
They're, basically the plastic pipes tend to degrade at a much, much slower rate. So the typical leaks or vulnerabilities would be the more obvious things you could inspect, like a broken cleanout cap. Someone maybe checks their sewer pipe and doesn't screw the cleanout cap in and rainwater trickles in. We're also, each project, we improve the manhole lids because the old lids used to have lots of vent holes, but when the streets get flooded on these heavy rains, they just, it's kind of like, death by 1,000 pinpricks. Every manhole drips a few drips, and by the downstream system with a couple thousand manholes, you have a lot of gallons of water coming in. So we're always pursuing that. And that's one reason why this board, for many years now, has been very active on working on repairing any connected lateral pipes, because the laterals being shallower tend to act like a French drain. So the more often we can assist customers in trying to fix those problems when the district project goes by, we save water coming in. We also save the streets getting dug up immediately after the county paves it because someone has a lateral problem, because sometimes the county will come in and pave the street after our sewer work or water jobs. So there's benefits to the community in several ways for these projects.
All right, so the action for us is to authorize the general manager to award contract to Hardeman Construction.
So make a motion.
Okay, so as written in the agenda item, it's long, lengthy, but that's.
I'll second.
Thank you. So Peter to move and Catherine to second. And
Roll call?
this is just authorization.
Okay.
So all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, the motion carries 5-0. Okay. Thank you very much, Pippin and Clement.
Thank you, Pippin.
Nice shirt, Pippin. I like
Thank
that color.
All right, let's move on to reports. Sewer Authority Mid-Coast.
I'm trying to think. There hasn't been a lot going on. Everything has been peaceful. The last meeting we got done very quickly, and it was just pretty much routine business. I will say we are waiting on the appeals court, and so the budget is passed and we are moving forward. Unfortunately, the compromise that we ended up with on the budget was that we're only doing planning for repairing the pipeline that broke so badly between Montara and El Granada. And it is my understanding that the position of the SAM board is that we're going to repair the pipe as in place with no major changes so that we can get the planning and permitting done as soon as possible.
There was also 2 studies that we were waiting for. One study shows what happened with the force main, with the break of the force main, and what the potential reason for that was. That report has been completed, but the engineers are reviewing it. So we will have a look at that report sometime at the end of August
When they're done with it.
when they're done with it. And the same thing is with the study that was made to look at the flood situation near the plant, the reason for the water to come to the plant, and what the situation of the plant is in the case we have another December event.
So these are the two things we kind of heard some things about already, right?
Yes,
Oh, yeah.
but these reports are now close to being completed
Oh.
after the engineering review.
Oh.
So we look forward to get those.
Sid?
Okay, so, is the report from, I forgot, Tanya, what's her name?
SRT?
SRT, is that the bid ready yet or not for the replacing of the Montara pipe?
It's going to take a long time to
Oh,
get that
much,
together.
okay, so whether it comes in now or after the lawsuit gets settled, it's not gonna help us. We can't ask somebody like Mark Berman to chip in so we can get it done sooner than later. Anybody gonna know? And what about our FEMA money from Sam? Anything? Nothing?
We're working on it.
Yeah,
That was actually coming through MWSD, but FEMA is a slow process.
right. Oh, well, I took the sewer plant tour from Tim and he showed me where they're talking about piling up some more dirt in anticipation of the winter storms, which will probably come. So I guess they don't really have much of a plan.
You are
I
correct.
think-
We will have storms this winter.
I think it will help when we get that report to look at the situation of the plant versus the inflow of water. And at that time, we should definitely discuss increasing the dike professionally, I
Right.
think. But that is a matter to be discussed then when we get the report.
Right, and frankly, we need that one particular location that you and Tim were talking about on the south side of the plant,
Near the creek,
near one of the creeks.
right?
Is only one of the problems, and I'm sure he showed you the one off of the Kehoe neighborhood, the Kehoe ditch,
Yeah.
which is also very likely to flood and flood the plant in a different place. What we need is to put into the budget is some serious stormwater control. Not berms, but actually dikes.
Well, I mean, Half Moon Bay has a $10.5 million unfunded capital improvement stormwater project. So it's their neighborhoods that are going to get flooded besides the plant.
But MCC is also helping us look at that problem.
I hope so.
Greg knows about that.
Thanks, Greg.
I want to say something snarky about, but is there anyone who understands engineering dikes properly?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
I can always
Two people.
find a fellow Dutchman to help me there.
Yeah, two people in this room born in that country. Okay. Thank you for the report. Mid-Coast Community Council. Greg, do you have anything for us?
I have two things. I mentioned the telecommunications before, so that's the third one. We wrote a letter to the county requesting an explanation of the amount of money that the county receives from the Mid-Coast and the amount of money that the county spends on the Mid-Coast. Apparently nobody has ever asked for a budget for the Mid-Coast before. So
That's not true.
Okay, well, you guys have been around longer than I have, but we got a reply from the chief financial officer that 45 days from now, we should have the numbers that we asked for, and then we'll have to see whether, what they imply in terms of the flow of funds. But funny you mentioned stormwater. Some of you may be aware, we had a presentation at the MCC that said some pretty bold things last meeting. And I want you to be aware that I talked to Berman's staff today, and I'm showing them the presentation tomorrow. And I met with Ann Ashu's chief of staff today, and she has given me some guidelines on what kinds of federal funds might be available. And I'm trying to set up a meeting with Josh Becker's chief of staff for the week after next to lay the groundwork. And obviously MWSD and SAM and Half Moon Bay and GCSD are all going to have to get involved in this. But I'm going to try and coordinate some kind of grant request on behalf of the Mid-Coast to see if we can't get some money to help SAM out. And to Sid's point, which is also my point, you know, they have a $3.7 million budget deficit that would be $5 million if they were funding the necessary repairs to the intertie pipeline system. So they're in financial trouble. And so, yes, they have $10.5 million unfunded in their capital expenditure plan for stormwater, but we don't even know that the designs, if you look at the line items in that plan, they are not addressing the problems at the SAM plant. The City and County Association of Governments had a $3.5 million proposal for a reservoir to handle some of the just plain stormwater, surface water near the plant, but it didn't do anything for wet weather storage for the sewage. So we're going to try and push to get CCAG involved in overseeing a planning effort, and that's after talking to everybody. RCD and One Shoreline both pointed to CCAG. We're going to try and get some kind of planning effort because it looks like we need to get some help for Half Moon Bay and ourselves to do something serious about that plant. So, you know, Clemens, Pippin, I expect to be talking to you guys. I expect to send you a copy of a written report. Pippin already contributed. Clemens contributed a little bit already. I expect you guys to give it some critical review. And then after we fix it, be prepared to endorse what we're saying to the state and federal government. And we'll talk about who can write what grants. We're going to need administrative capacity to do that. We do have administrative capacity from Half Moon Bay for the telecommunications community fiber network, but we don't yet have administrative capacity for the grants that I'm talking about. And, you know, I'm just saying this is all up in the air, but I'm trying to coordinate a regional solution to the stormwater problems, which are, in fact, the majority, in my opinion, of the SAM problems. So that's it.
Thank you, Greg.
Sid?
Greg, this is sort of SAM and sort of MCC. I believe there was some kind of testing that we wanted to have done, but Half Moon Bay wouldn't do it. And can you ask Berman or whoever it is to try to get some funding for it? Do you know, remember?
Funding isn't the issue.
It's not COVID, right? It was some other kind of testing.
Oh, no, that was for the, it was for the fentanyl.
But they don't want to do it.
Yeah. The fentanyl testing, we've asked the county for funding for the fentanyl testing. There's a Measure K meeting on August 9th, which will probably replace the MCC meeting. We're going to find out at that meeting how we can turn our request for testing wastewater for fentanyl and other dangerous substances. We have coordinated with the public health department. We are in agreement with them that this testing should be done. But you're right, Half Moon Bay didn't want to pay their share of $1,000 a month testing program run out of the SAM plant. And, you know, within their rights, because it isn't really strictly cleaning wastewater. It's a public health thing. They wanted the budget come from somewhere else because they're really in financial trouble. So, yeah, we're trying to help them out and get that testing funded elsewhere. We wrote a letter to that effect. So stay tuned.
That was my question. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Greg. Let's move on to CSDA or LAFCO.
CSDA, there is a CSDA meeting at, in Monterey for 3 days at the end of August. And Clemens, I'm going to be going for the Harbor District. I asked Clemens to talk to the rest of the board about whether you guys wanted to go or not. LAFCO, there was a meeting on July 19th. The next one will be in September. The major issue that we had been talking about here with LAFCO was put off, and that was establishing the East Palo Alto Sanitary District as a subsidiary district of the city of East Palo Alto, which means the city would be in charge of the sanitary district. So, but that was postponed. So that's LAFCO and CSDA.
Okay, thank you. Christine, attorney's report?
Oh, let me add one more thing real quick. And the new chair of CSDA is Jim Pruitt, who is the general manager of the Harbor District. Jim, as Jim said, he was voluntold. He was going to be,
Was that LAFCO, did you say?
no, it was CSDA.
CSDA.
He was going to be chair of CSDA. So our meetings, I think, will be more accessible and more regular. So, Christine.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I have a quick report. I found out today that a legislative nonprofit group called Consumer Watchdog submitted an initiative proposed for the 2024 election ballot that makes some significant reforms to California's public records laws, some that only affect the state, but also that affect and impact the district when it receives requests for public records. It's pretty expansive. I have not been able to read the entire proposal, but there are some things that will impact the cost that our district will incur, whether we can, or to what extent we can use attorney-client privilege and attorney work product and other privileges when exempting certain records. There's maybe some annual posting requirements on our website. And so if any board member would like more information, I'm happy to send you some, or I can give a more detailed report at a later date. But it's definitely something everyone should look out for. It's called the Government Transparency Act, I think, and it amends the California Public Records Act and the Legislative Open Records Act. So anyway, it's kind of interesting.
Bill?
It seems to me that about half the time reforms come through, they're actually trying to make things better. And the other half the time, there's some nefarious actor trying to undermine things which are working so they work less well. Broadly speaking, do you have a sense of which end of the spectrum this thing is? I'm not interested in the tail. It's just, is this an evil actor trying to make things worse, or is it a legitimate outfit trying to do something legit?
From what I can tell, I think it's pretty legitimate. The basis, I think, how it arose was a lot of frustration on the part of the public trying to get public records, and what a slow process that it really is. And that's actually part of the reforms, is to speed up the process. And also with respect to legislative misconduct in Sacramento, apparently there's a lot of stonewalling going on for those types of records. So I'm not sure about anything evil or nefarious. There could be, but at least what I've seen so far. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, you said that answers the question.
Oh, okay, good.
Catherine?
No, I'm sorry. I was.
Okay. Great. Let's move on to director's reports. Anybody? Sid?
Hi. Well, did she have her hand up first?
No, I'm trying to deal with
your
it.
wrist.
Okay. I keep wanting to.
Sorry about that. I don't want to supersede
Go
you.
ahead, Sid.
Okay. I went to the CDRC meeting for Mid-Penn Housing about 2 weeks ago now, I think it was, at Ray Mueller's new office at Harbor Village. And I'm a little concerned, and other members of the public were also concerned, that they are putting the design review ahead of the EIR, which hasn't come out yet. And one of the things, they just really wanted to get the temperature of the room to see what suggestions we had on their architectural plans. And one of the things I brought up was the fact that there's going to be, I think, 142 parking places and only 5 EV chargers. And, I just checked the gas prices in Moss Beach Chevron, which is the only gas station close to that mid-band, and it's $5.19 for regular today. And if those people are going to move into a not exactly transit-rich community, there's no buses, there's no school buses, and the gas prices are high, they should put in more EV chargers. And I said, by the time this thing gets built, we'll be closer to when California is going to, make gas-powered cars not, purchasable anymore. And I think that's less than a decade away at this point. And I said, you should put in at least 1 EV charger per unit. That's 71, because there's going to be for sure more than 2 cars per household, especially if it's a 3-bed, some of the 3 bedrooms. I mean, even a 1-bedroom could have 2 driving adults in it. But anyway, they kind of cringed when I said that. But they did not get some of the most recent funding that San Mateo County gave out. I think they gave $20 million or something to the different ones. And they asked, why didn't Cypress Point get theirs? And they said they're not far enough along in the process yet. But I really think that community needs to have better services. And, we all know what it's like to live here and have to drive 14 miles round trip to a major grocery store. But people that might be applying from somewhere else might not realize how expensive it is to come and go and live your life in this remote area.
Are they going to have an adequate number of parking spaces for the number of units?
Probably not.
Because the neighborhood, we already have a shortage of houses. It is getting
I did mention adding some overflow parking in the lot below Lincoln Street where the tanks are for our water. There's like a big dirt field that gets real muddy in the winter, but they could put more parking there, but right now it's preserved as open space. So I suggested they add some more parking, but they get bonus density credits for under providing parking. And then they make all this, I call it magical thinking, that people are going to take the bus or ride their bicycles to work. But we all know Harold Herman got hit by his bicycle along Highway 1 on the shoulder. He was killed. And that's very unfortunate. But there's going to be I don't know how many residents, but 71 units times however many people they cram in there with not really adequate, ways to bike to work, or even for kids to walk to school at this point. So anyway, we aired our concerns, but they basically said, well, that's something that'll be in the EIR, the traffic and all of that. So we still didn't understand why they were putting it first, the cart before the horse, but they did it that way. Anyhow.
Okay. Any other directors? No. Clemens, General Manager report.
I want to remind everybody that we actually have a special meeting scheduled for this coming Tuesday at 10 a.m. And we know already one of the topics that we're looking at is a public hearing for the districting maps. So this is one additional public hearing where we're going to discuss the draft maps. There was a new draft map posted last week on our website, D2. So please take a look at the draft maps. Let us know if you have any questions. Please provide any comments before or during the public hearing on Tuesday. We then will have one more public hearing, and that is on the next regular scheduled MWSD meeting. That's the Thursday, is that August 18th, I believe? 17th, August 17th, thank you. And at that, we're basically adopting the final map. So yeah, just anyone who can, please attend this coming public hearing on Tuesday at 10 a.m.
All right, Sid.
They have number 4 in the 3 spot on the most recent map, so that's wrong. I don't know if you noticed. I mean, maybe you can't see it, but it's all pink, the 4 and the 3, and this purple doesn't have any number in it, so. That's a
Yeah, I
boo.
mean, that's number 4.
Yeah, I think so, but not the way they have it. So either the pink has to move over, or the number has to move into the purple, or the purple needs to surround the number.
One of the topics that we have to discuss is also the numbering of the districts. That's also something that we're going to touch base on Tuesday.
Right. I did notice they flip-flopped a few times. Down here, it was number 1 at one point, and
Yeah,
that was when it was the wraparound district, I think. But anyway, okay.
Okay, so the next meeting Tuesday at 10 a.m. And then the following meeting on the 17th at a regular time.
10 a.m. is a special meeting, but it's not a closed session, right?
It's a special meeting
For public
and
too.
special meetings are open.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
we also will have a closed session portion on Tuesdays, but public hearing is open session. It's just
Even meetings
Board
that
meeting.
have closed session have open session before we go into closed session. So. Okay, anything for future agendas? No. We have no closed session tonight and hearing no